It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Pizza Person.
Delicious. Let's go ahead and get started. Are you able to share a bit on the decision process on how to choose which characters to use when drafting a new IDW Sonic arc? And do IDW and Sega have heavy influence on which characters get focus for the year in the comics?
Let's work backwards. Typically, no. IDW and Sega largely leave us up to our own devices. It's only in like certain circumstances they are like, hey, we would love it if you did something with such and such. Or IDW, when they were looking at the anniversary issues, they're like, hey, we want you to do a classic Sonic story, or we want you to do a classic Tails story. But beyond that, it's been largely, up to creative forces.
This isn't like the old days though, where they were largely unsupervised and could just do whatever they wanted, right?
Well,
back in the Archie days, it's like, well, I feel like it's a little different. I don't know. Maybe it's just because you all have a different philosophy on what you write for the book. So
it's a different company. It's different editors. It's a different working relationship with Sega. But if Sega were to say, hey, we're redoing the whole brand, Sonic Frontiers was the last modern Sonic game. We're revamping everything. Apply it to the book. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen.
Right.
I'm not saying that is happening. That's not a knowing smile. That's just me giving an example. If David or Riley, the editors, were like, we really want to shift the focus of the tone to this, you either do that or you're out of work. They wouldn't do that. They're very much, open to creative decision, but there is that hierarchy there, and we as freelancers, have to abide by it, but we do enjoy a fair amount of creative freedom. Character decision, for me, it all just comes down to what the story is and what I'm trying to tell. Like, if I want to showcase characters that we haven't seen in a bit, what story makes sense to include them? If I want to keep the narrative fairly light, don't have too heavy of a cast. If I want to, do something more comedic, some characters work better for that. If I want to do something more dramatic, different characters work better for that. Do I want to take a character in a certain direction? What foils do they have that make sense? What could possibly be an oddball one that could make for an interesting interaction? It's like, what's the story I want to tell, and how's the best way to tell it? It's not really a mathematical construction. It's almost like cooking. It's like, a little bit of seasoning over here and a little bit of spice, and yeah, that tastes good. That's a good Sonic gumbo, I guarantee.
I guarantee.
Gonna give you the spin cycle on your tummy.
Yum. Will you add major new heroes to IDW Sonic every year, or do you think you've reached the saturation point of major new heroes? Curious, since it looks like Lanolin is becoming a major character now, as opposed to a background character. Between an already large game cast, plus Tangle, Whisper, Belle, Jewel, and maybe now Lanolin, there are a lot of cool heroes to divide the spotlight between.
There are, and Lanolin kind of crept up on me. Like, oh, hey, there's some attention to this one cute background character that Adam drew once. Oh, hey, she has a name. Oh, hey, she's got a design now. Oh, hey, she's the character. Huh. Hi.
Hey, whatever. If I want more characters to have that. Let them in.
It is a very interesting and very different approach. I wouldn't say they're all major characters. Like, Belle definitely was for her arc.
Yeah.
But I don't know how prominent she's going to be now that that's reached a conclusion. There may be a shift in focus to someone else. Belle is not a major character. She is a supporting character. She was always designed to be a supporting character. She's done more than I initially anticipated, but she is not a marquee character. She is not on the same level as like Cream or Tangle or anyone like that. Tangle and Whisper, though, they have had way more
they have
expected.
They have some staying power.
Like, I was hoping they might be embraced by the fandom, and they have they've exploded well beyond my expectations.
Yeah, I was going to say, it
So-
surpassed your wildest dreams.
But I would, and like Rough and Tumble, Mimic, they're not major characters. They're supporting villainy. They're second fiddles at best. So, but I get what you're saying is there is a lot of new content being added. My personal intention isn't to really add too much anymore. I would like to focus on what we have and other franchise stuff that we haven't played with yet and play with all the toys. I feel like we've built our world and cast in a nice place that we can now start to build on it and have the interactions. And Lalen kind of facilitates that. I don't think she's so much a starring role as she is a good catalyst for getting some other things to move along. You'll see. But that's my take on it. You know, Evan, Danny, whoever else might weigh in, they may have other views, they may have other plans, and it's up to David and Riley to figure out how that's all going to fit together. That ain't my job, so we'll all see.
Cool. You said in an earlier BumbleKast Q&A you received an answer on Blaze in 06 that you can't talk about. My question to you is, does Sonic Team seem interested in sharing what their answer is to the fans at a later date, or do you think they'll keep the door closed on the matter forever? Thanks to 06, I viewed Blaze as a post-apocalyptic survivor from the future for a long time instead of royalty from another dimension, so it'd be nice to get closure on why she was portrayed as a future denizen.
I can't speak for the entirety of Sonic Team. I know there has been some discussion about it, and on the one hand, I want it out there just to tie a bow on it, you know. But on the other hand, Sonic 06 is just shy of 20 years old now, you know?
Yep, almost. It's getting there.
And it was not the best received title. So one line of thinking is, why dredge up a confusing plot point from a game that most folks don't remember or don't particularly like just to explain it when it doesn't affect anything anymore? Blaze and Silver are semi-regular supporting cast. They interact or will interact more. And is it better to focus on moving forward than going back and dredging up old confusion just to clarify? Personally, I think yes, I want that answer, but I'm a super turbo nerd. So if there is an opportunity to gracefully address that, maybe, but I wouldn't stay up late waiting for it to come home.
There's a lot of things we'll never get answers to, and it's... I mean, I get it. I get the desire to want answers, but sometimes we'll just never know. I hear you are now on the lore team. Can you talk about what that will entail in broad terms? If you can't talk about the lore position at all at this time, what kind of Sonic lore would you like to touch on in the given future? What kind of Sonic lore would you like to touch on in the future given the opportunity?
I don't know how much spotlight they want on it. Suffice to say, we talk about Sonic lore stuff and make decisions concerning Sonic's lore across all media.
The Sonic Lore Council, they meet in the secret lair around the table.
Formerly known as the No Homers Club. And my role in there is largely clerical, and it's more or less a consulting gig. You know, here is X. What is your input as a member of this initiative? Well, I think blah, blah, blah. Okay, everyone takes it into consideration. That's moved up the chain of command. It goes through departments and talkie and what have you. And then sometimes when a project comes along that is lore focused, I kind of get one of the first dibs on pitching to work on it, like the Knuckles short for Frontiers. Or the Prelude comic that we did. It's like, okay, we want to do this bit of media to support the game. Would you be interested in contributing to it, since we know you and we know what you can do? And it's like, yeah.
I mean, like, why are you even asking me? Like, duh.
So that's basically what it is, without getting into too fine a point on it.
Yes. So basically what you do is choose how many chili dogs are on the plate.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the mandates.
Yes, it's true. Good old mandates. No romance allowed in Sonic, though, so much for that.
That has been an interesting discussion.
Oh, no. Oh. Oh. Now I want to know more. See what you've done, Ian?
Hashtag knowing smile.
Is this something you should actually be smiling about, or should we be like doing one of those?
This is just me maliciously taunting you.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
Like normally the hashtag knowing smile is just out there to tease. Fun stuff's coming. This time, no, I'm actually being a jerk.
Oh, well, at least you acknowledge it.
Oh yeah, full disclosure.
Finally. That's how you're taunting us now. This knowing smile has become a malicious taunt.
That's more accurate. Hashtag malicious taunt. There you go.
Finally, you admit it. You admit that you're just teasing us. God. I knew it. In another Q&A, you stated the way Silver time travels has not been publicly revealed when a bio on the Sonic channel stating that he can travel through time with chaos control was brought to question. Looking at the same bio, it references Silver as a new rival to Sonic. My own interpretation of this is that it is alluding to Silver uses chaos control to travel through time in Rivals, not just 06, since it was posted a year after Rivals 2. Naturally, you can't talk about the new stuff directly, but are we to consider whatever the new method may be a retcon? And does this mean Sonic, Shadow, and Silver can no longer use chaos control to travel through time? Mostly, I just find it weird they set up an entire plot in 06 around using Chaos Emeralds to time travel, to then backtrack on it over a decade later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are you actually surprised on that? This is kind of how it goes. This is just kind of how the franchise is, man.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but dual chaos control is still a means of time travel. It just isn't necessarily how Silver has been doing it since 06, because you quite literally need two to tango on that one. I don't think you can do dual chaos control. Maybe if you have two chaos emeralds.
Well,
but it's. I mean, I guess it's technically a retcon because it's not been established publicly yet, and it would be retroactively established once it is public. So,
I mean,
yeah, I guess that's the definition of retcon, isn't it?
I guess it hasn't been acknowledged since that time. I don't know.
It's basically, hey, I've come back in time, and it's like, okay, now the rest of the plot rolls.
Cool. You've come back in time. How? I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
That's not the important thing. We have to stop the fire demon from eating all the chow.
Pretty much.
Sorry, what?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, how does Silver time travel? Oh. How does Sonic run fast? Oh.
A wizard did it.
Well, that would explain a lot, actually. But no magic allowed, remember?
I tell that to Marlena.
Yeah, well, she's in a book. The book within Sonic's world. So that's fictional, Ian. That's double fictional. All the way across the sky. Yeah. No magic allowed in the real world, which is Sonic's world, obviously. We are a fictional world within Sonic's world. I mean, that would make as much sense as anything else. Speaking of the time traveler, Silver used to be serious and well-meaning, but also had an attitude and was ruthless if you looked at his earlier games. For example, he robbed Tails, left Nega for dead, had a rivalry with Sonic, and infamously tried to kill Sonic. Now Silver is portrayed as, in your own words, a cinnamon roll. I was curious if this was Sonic Team's direction or your own take on the character. His IDW portrayal is fairly different from his earlier portrayals, and from what I understand, Rivals is canon, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on the differences between the OG Silver portrayal and the current.
I think part of it is they were figuring out who Silver was early on, and his appearances were not as carefully cultivated as others. And while he certainly did make attempts on Sonic, he still had the hesitation. He still didn't want to pull the trigger on it, but he was desperate. My interpretation of 06 is while he certainly was doing his due diligence to save the future, he was very happy to have the alternative when it presented itself. And that conveniently Blaze is not around to really argue the point, and finer details are never really discussed because that would have resolved things very quickly. Anyway, I think you're not wrong. He was a little more, well, yes and no. I mean, he's always had a bit of naivete to him, and you might read that as more prominent than not, depending on how you interpret the material. And I think in general, he has collectively mellowed out a little bit, I guess. The naivete has won over that more than the, I don't want to call it ruthlessness, because I don't feel like that was ever really part of him. The tenacity. I mean, he still looks before he leaps. He still is going to think he's doing the right thing and go full on with it. But I don't think it's really so much a killer edge.
No, I think he was just trying to basically save his timeline, save his future more so than anything. So that is probably why he got, all hot-headed and, he was desperate, And
I'm thinking of one of the Olympic Games story mode. He was like really stilted, like some kind of bad 90s superhero, and it's like, what is this? Who signed off on this?
Yeah. Apparently his characterization in Japan is still very similar, but I don't know. Japanese media, I should say. I understand you can't go into behind-the-scenes details, but in your opinion, does Sonic Team seem disinterested in using Sonic's other friends in major game plots besides Tails, Knuckles, and Amy? Don't get me wrong, I love those characters very much, but it's been generations since we've seen Cream in a main game. I see what you did there. I think a lot of fans would love to see the same treatment given to the characters in recent media extended to more of Sonic's friends in future games. At one point in the games, there were more major viewpoint characters as well, and we missed them.
Sure, I cannot and will not speak for the entirety of Sonic Team. I can speculate that the budget is a concern because each character requires their own model and their own rigging, and with each advancement of the console generation and power, that requires a higher graphical fidelity. But then they are also trying to be multi-platform still, so you're trying to build something that runs both on a PS5 and a Switch. What? That's madness. So being able to do all that they do, the scope has to be taken into account, and it has to be limited to a certain degree. I know I would like to see. Yeah, I that would be my guess as the primary motivator, is that, if you only have so much time, money, and resources to make a Sonic game, are you going to focus on the characters that most people know and enjoy and are easy to market, or are you going to try to bring up more obscure characters with their niche fandom? I personally would love to see more of them because, again, as established, turbo nerd.
And you also have to have them be around for them to gain any sort of more fandom, so they can be more prominent.
That's the catch-22 to it.
Yeah.
If you don't feature them, then they don't get the attention, so that further pigeonholes them.
Right.
But do you take the gamble with the time and money and resources to try to bring them back, for what may not be a clear dividend? So that's
you put Sonic on the you put Sonic on the front of the box, it'll sell. I don't think you have to worry too much. But I get it. I know how the bean counters are, Ian. I know.
And I think that's what one of the things IDW is great for, is that we have that chance to use the extended cast more.
Yes.
And see them and show them off in do things with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. That's always what the comic has kind of served, and I've always appreciated that about it. You explain narratively why Starline kicked the bucket in the comics, but why kill him from a series standpoint, since he'd already been around for several years? From what I can tell, Sonic Team doesn't kill off recurring characters. Most of the characters that survived their first major game arc are still alive. Eggman Nega might be an exception, but I'm still not convinced he's dead until Sonic Team says something more definitive. Also, I really hate that name and how I have to enunciate it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I hope he's dead, because then we don't have to worry about it no more. And Starline and his death, actually gives the narrative some stakes. There is a degree of culpability now. No one is necessarily safe with plot armor. I mean, the core cast, sure, we're not going to be able to kill off Amy. That's ridiculous. But, there needed to be, if he had got away, or if he were locked up, or some other ending for him, I don't think it would have had the same impact. I don't think it would have meant the same. It wouldn't have serviced Eggman's character. It wouldn't have serviced Bell's character, Surge, Kits. It just wouldn't have worked as well. It wouldn't have done its job. And, we have other secondary and tertiary villains, and if need be, we can make more. So it was the logical end to Starline's character, and it worked on a number of levels. So I don't feel like it should be beholden to, maybe we can merchandise him one day. And you've got Mephiles plushies out there. If you want if Starline merch is to exist, it can do so. He can just, spin in his grave.
Well, hey, this is Sonic, so character spinning is just kind of how it goes. So it makes sense. Will Sonic fans be required to read the comics going forward for new information on characters or lore? I'm curious, since before IDW Sonic was non-canon to the games, but now it seems there's going to be a greater connection between the IDW comics and the games.
No, that's not the intention, at least. I always wrote them with the idea of them being part of game canon, just because that made things easier. Mm-hmm. Whatever new game came along, it would inform the world of the comic. So why try to buck that system? Just work with the assumption that, okay, this is the game universe and it should fit somehow, whether it's official or not, and go from there. So, you didn't need to read any of IDW to understand Sonic Frontiers, and you don't have to play Frontiers to understand what's coming up in IDW. They exist within the same universe, but they are not necessarily wholly reliant on each other.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me. Have you ever wanted to test the waters and pitch an IDW story showing Marine with hydrokinesis just to see if it gets approved?
Yeah, but that can't be the focus.
Why not? Why can't we have the Marine versus Kit issue? Just turn Adam loose on it again. Come on.
It can be an element. I would like to have it fully addressed. Again, tie a bow on it just so we know what's going on. But Marine is not a top priority character, unfortunately, and making sense of one plot point from one game that came out. How long ago was Sonic Rush Adventure now?
I don't know.
A while.
15 years?
It's like, is it worth dredging that up to answer it? I want to. Turbo Nerd. Is it a priority? No.
2007, by the way.
Good God.
Yeah. I forgot that. Let's see, when did Sonic Rush come out? Okay, Sonic Rush was just before Sonic 06. Wow. I guess, yeah, that would make sense considering Blaze is in 06. But she wasn't introduced there, so I get it. In Rush Adventure, and Generations, Blaze can float. Any idea if this is a separate ability from her pyrokinesis? It is sometimes believed that this is based around hot air rising, and her cape is giving a hot air balloon effect. However, replaying Generations, she can float upside down, which makes me think that isn't the answer. But who am I to question Sonic character physics?
In the Rush games, at least, it was a jet of flame coming from the bottom of her feet. She was propelling herself with pyro power. Does that make a ton of sense? No, but who cares? It's a pyrokinetic cat from another dimension. Whatever. The thing in Generations that always bugs me because she just like spiral flies through the stage. But then again, so does Knuckles, and he can't do that. He can only glide. And all the cutscenes Silver's in, he isn't actually held within his psychokinetic aura. That's kind of required for him to fly, and instead he's just kind of flitting around freely. So I'm going to chalk it up to an error in visual continuity.
There's a bit of irony that in Sonic's world, everybody can fly except for the birds. I heard you mention recently that you'd like to give Tails some sort of super form. How would you approach this? Knuckles getting something might make sense being the guardian of the Master Emerald, even if right now Sonic Team doesn't want the Master Emerald to grant super forms. Super Amy would make sense if super is a hedgehog thing. Tails, though, I'm having a hard time thinking of a justification. Allowing Tails to use the Chaos Emeralds to get a super form would mean pretty much any character could get a super form. And like you said before, then it wouldn't be special. Yeah, but Tails is special. Come on, man.
Tails has been with Sonic since virtually the beginning. He's trained directly under Sonic. He has as much experience with the Chaos Emeralds, and if quite possibly could have a greater understanding of them. Him having a Gohan-esque arc of learning to harness that power and transform, I think makes perfect sense. And I hate the hedgehog rule.
Yeah.
But it does run that risk of, if everyone's super, no one will be. And even if you keep it to like the select core 4 and Shadow and Silver and kind of Blaze, it runs the risk of just disseminating the idea. And then you get the folks saying, well, if Tails has it, why doesn't Cream have it? Technically General had a transformation. Why can't he do that anymore? Where's our super big? And it just becomes a greater and greater request. So I kind of want it for him just as a personal win, but I don't know if it's necessarily what should happen for him. I don't know. That is a larger discussion to be had by more folks and more departments in the long term.
In the chat, I see a suggestion for super big, and I'm like, why does Big need to be super? He's already the most powerful. Big doesn't need a super form. Big is the super form. All right, and our last question from Pizza Person. Many Sonic characters have a favorite food, but I haven't seen anything directly stated for all characters. Do you know what the favorite foods are for Eggman, Shadow, Rouge, Silver Vector, and Blaze? If not, what are your headcanons? Well, Eggman's been shown to be eating like giant sub sandwiches.
He loves large portions, period.
Yeah.
Like that box of chicken that Cubot was bringing him at one time, that looked delicious. That rainbow shaved ice, that was enough to feed 5 people. I think Eggman's just happy to have anything just so much as it's enough.
Yum.
And funny thing, this actually was part of the internal discussion with the team, so there is talk on what will be official in the future. I don't know if that's ever going to come out, but there is talk. There is that attention to detail, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you can't tell us now?
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, well, maybe in the future we will learn what Vector's favorite food is. Is it raw meat? I mean, it's kind of his thing. You'd think.
It's 99-cent ramen. It's the only thing he can afford.
That's too expensive for him. That's expensive, man. That adds up quick.
You'd be surprised how many you can hide in a long snout like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, he's not stealing. He's just reappropriating for Commonwealth. SBO, throw a steak. SBO, throw a smoke grenade. Detective, vanish.
Whoosh! There he goes. And we're going to drop a smoke bomb and get on out of here because we are done with this BumbleKast Mini.
Yeah, thank you to Pizza Person for sponsoring this episode. If you want a BumbleKast Mini of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member.
We'll see you in the next one.